Hello guys, welcome back. And today we're going to be talking about the Washington Capitals versus the Tampa Bay Lightning playoff series. Now, of course, the Eastern Conference Final for the 2018 NHL season went to the Washington Capitals. It was a thriller, and it went to Game 7. Now, I'm going to be reviewing all the games, so let's just go through that. Now, in Game 1, the Capitals took a massive lead to start out. For the first couple of periods, they took a 4-0 lead, Vasilevsky having to be pulled to start out the third period with Demink in, and once that started happening, Tampa started playing a little bit better there as they started getting a couple goals, and they got a couple goals in that period, a couple of good ones, but it just wasn't enough to come back as they took a couple bad power penalties, and of course, Washington's going to score on the power play, so it was a bad idea, however, for Tampa, and obviously didn't start off well, which was the huge thing. They might have had a good third period there, scoring goals-wise, but they put themselves in too big of a hole and lost 4-2, unfortunately. In the second game, it was a lot more of a beating as the Washington Capitals won 6-2. Holtby with an amazing game, had a lot of great saves, but Tampa's defense wasn't too great. Washington was making it look easy, a lot of great smooth plays. There was a couple of just unbelievable deflections by both Tom Wilson and some other guys, but it was a great game for Washington. It was more even just on the shot clock, but I felt like Washington was a much better team in executing and what they needed to go. Tampa was just pretty weak in front. They weren't really doing too much, and they got a couple of power play goals, but other than that, they weren't able to do too much. Vasilevsky had an game. He made a couple of great saves and a couple of bad letting goals, so he didn't have the best game either, but Holtby had a great one. The Washington Capitals definitely deserved to get that 2-0 lead in the series. Now in Game 3, first game in Washington, Tampa came out strong, winning it 4-2, but it was not really the close game that might appear. It was like 4-1 game. Then Washington ended up scoring with the empty nets, but Washington wouldn't come back from that. But it was a weird game because it was one of these games where Tampa wasn't the better team. Just everybody's honest there. Washington had a fantastic game offensively. They were only able to get 2. Vasilevsky had an amazing game. He was great. After a game in Game 2, he definitely bounced back and played a great game there. But Washington played fantastic. They definitely deserved to win this game, in my opinion. Even though Tampa might have gotten some great goals, might have gotten some pretty goals there. I feel like Washington just had more of the effort, more of the chances, and I feel like Washington probably should have won this, but there was a guy on the other side called Andrei Vasilevsky, and he's trying to stop him out, and he definitely did that game. Oh yeah, it also helps Tampa's case when Holtby isn't really playoff Holtby that we've seen this season. Now Game 4 was all Andrei Vasilevsky, his best game by far in this series, absolutely stealing the game. The Tampa Bay Lightning, they won the game 4-2 once again, the same score as Game 3, but no doubt Vasilevsky was the MVP of that game. He made probably 5 great saves that should have been goals on most other goaltenders. Amazing game by Vasilevsky. He was one of the reasons why the series was tied at that point, and he had a fantastic game overall. The game was tied 2-2, about 80 minutes left, and you know it. Killorn gets the game-winning goal there, slips it by Holtby, and the Tampa Bay Lightning win it 2-2. But overall, Vasilevsky was stealing it for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and an amazing game, by far his best of maybe even the playoffs. Now in Game 5, it was a deciding game for both teams. It was a weird one. Like, for Tampa, they won 3-2. That's great. Vasilevsky with another great game. But it felt like Washington did have the upper hand again. It felt like Washington played better hockey once again. And while Tampa got off to a good lead, Washington started chipping away, and it got really close towards the end as Vasilevsky had to make a great save with about 10 seconds left to win the game for Tampa, as they did win 3-2. But again, I was concerned with that game. Even though Tampa won it, I was still concerned with it. They didn't play the best in that game. Maybe didn't even deserve it, but they did. And they took the 3-2 series lead, and of course, it all went kind of downhill after that. After that, it was all Washington. In Game 6, Washington Capitals won 3-0. It was a deciding win for them. Holtby had a great game and a shutout for the first time in 84 games for him, and that ended a long drought for his shutout streak, or I guess a long drought for not getting a shutout, and he finally does get it then. And he didn't have to make too many saves, but the saves that he didn't have to make were great. There was a lot of chances that the Tampa Bay Lightning had when they would get the shot on net. It was usually a great shot. Holtby had to make a lot of great saves. He was really good on this one, but I was really impressed with the Washington defense shutting down the Tampa Bay Lightning for the most part, and their offense, of course, was explosive at times, and they were just able to come up and score a goal flawlessly. And Washington definitely had a great game and really a controlled game, as they had a really good dominant game there in Game 6. And of course, heading back to Game 7 was the deciding one to choose who would go on to the Stanley Cup Final. And in Game 7, It was a weird one. We start out the first game, and in 1 minute in, Ovechkin scores and puts it up 1-0. Now, Tampa wasn't playing all that great until that goal, but after that, I felt like they had a great response. They played fantastic in the first period and played unbelievable in the second period, but were down, and they were still down, and they hadn't even scored a goal yet. Holtby had an amazing game, a godlike game, a fantastic one, and Holtby had one of his best games of his career. In my eyes, he had an amazing game, a career game, and of course for the Washington Capitals, a franchise kind of game where you highlight it. Holtby had an amazing game. Tampa was just putting on the shots left and right. It was an amazing game by Tampa's offense. I felt like they were controlling it, and their depth was doing a lot of good things, and they were getting a lot of shots, and they were doing fantastic, especially in the second period. It was crazy how good they were doing. But Washington would come up the ice just once again and find a way to score, and that's something that Tampa wasn't doing. Tampa was getting the shots on, a lot of them were low quality, but when Tampa got their opportunities, they did anything but score. With Washington, they came up to rush after pretty much being dominated by Tampa for a couple minutes, came up the rush and scored once again, and that's what you need to do, Tampa. It doesn't matter if you're getting outplayed or what, just win the game, and Washington, for some reason, knew how to do that, and they got it done. In Game 7, the Washington Capitals won 4-0, and I want to say that it's deserving. In the third period, Tampa played atrocious. I felt like if they continued playing like they had in the second and first, they'd finally get something going, but Tampa just played atrocious in the third period, and it seemed like they learned nothing from the second period or the first period. It just felt like they were kind of confused, and in that period, they were just playing terrible. So at that point, I was kind of fine with Washington winning because obviously Tampa didn't really deserve it. Of course, Tampa is my second favorite team, but for me, as technically a Tampa fan, I was not impressed by them at all. Just throughout the series as a whole, I was not impressed with them at all. They had a couple of great games, but sometimes when they just win, it just didn't feel like they were really deserving of it. And other times, it just felt like Washington was dominating the series, and I felt like Washington definitely deserved to win the series, and I felt like it was a lot less closer than it should have been. I feel like Washington probably should have won the series in 5 or 6. I don't think that it deserved to go 7 because I do think that Washington had a couple of games where Vasilevsky was just stealing it. And in Game 7, Tampa really needed to have Vasilevsky be the god that he was early in the series, but Tampa learned their lesson, and they just can't rely on Vasilevsky anymore. They can't just have it all Vasilevsky. They can't rely on him to do all the work. And hopefully it's a lesson going into next season because their defense played badly in that game. Their offense was pretty decent, and they played very good in the first couple periods, but towards the end, it was nothing. It was non-existent. They didn't get a shot in the third period until the 9-minute mark. It was terrible, and it seemed like they were a completely different team from the second period and the third period onward, and it just was kind of disappointing because they obviously looked like they'd given up. The Stanley Cup final, and have that series between Vegas and Washington will be a great one too. So it doesn't really matter. Both series would have been great to see, but it's going to be now for Washington. The biggest thing that impressed me throughout the series is when they were scoring. Yeah, they'd have their stars come up like Ovechkin and Kuznetsov and all those guys. They had these superstars for Washington producing, but they had guys like Devontae Smith-Pelly have series of their lives, have guys that are not really considered great guys that could be replaceable. Devontae Smith-Pelly had an amazing series and was incredible. You had a lot of guys like that on that depth for Washington that had a great series and had great performances, and that's what Washington needs going into the Stanley Cup final, and that's also a thing that they've really produced on going into the series and into the series, and that's something that was the biggest factor for me, is that Washington's depth was rolling and their superstars were rolling. With Tampa, it was either on or off. It was either their superstars were going on, or the depth would fall apart, or their depth would put all the offense, or their superstars would just be non-existent, and it was just Capitals were mainly consistent throughout the whole series, having both producing at the same time. For Tampa, it also doesn't help their case that Holtby was incredible throughout the series. Really a Holt god, and he was amazing. He was incredible. All that Washington needed, and they needed from Holtby, and they got it. Holtby was incredible, and one of the main reasons they're advancing the Stanley Cup final. For Vasilevsky, for me, he was mainly inconsistent. He had a couple of great games, and a couple of fantastic games. A couple of games where he just stole the show, but then he'd come out the next game and not do too well. And with Tampa, with the opportunities and the chance that they were giving up to Washington pretty much every single night, they needed Vasilevsky to be a lead goaltender every single night. Unfortunately, for Tampa, he just couldn't do that. And for Tampa next season, they can't rely on Vasilevsky as much as they did this season. That's obviously something that they need to fix on. Another big factor in Game 7 is I love that there were so many Capitals fans just absolutely tearing apart Burakovsky throughout the series. And in Game 7, he gets 2 goals to pretty much help the Capitals to a 4-0 win in Game 7, which I feel like was just ironic. Burakovsky putting on the pressure in Game 7, but was able to get it done. But for Tampa, they aren't the perfect team that people were putting them out to be, and I never considered them a perfect team. I never considered them the best team in the league. I felt like they had holes that weren't going to get exposed in the playoffs, and what do you know, they did. And especially in Game 7, they did not look good at all going into that third period, and overall as a team, not good at all. But for Washington, I'm super happy for them. If it was Boston versus Washington, I would have wholeheartedly been cheering for Washington in the series. But it was just them against Tampa, so I really had to choose either one. Of course, I went with Tampa because I like them more than the Capitals, but I'm really happy for Washington here. Not only have they never gone to the third round since 1998, they haven't gotten to the Stanley Cup Final in 1998, and it's been a long time coming for Washington. It's about time that they finally got something going. It's finally Washington's year to at least get to the ball game and at least get that close to it. They're going to be facing Vegas. I'm going to be making a video about that too, but at least they can say that they're close at it and they were in that fight. It's about time. I've been saying that's Washington's year for a long, long time. It's about time that they finally get it done. Of course, it's my second favorite team because I can't really have nice things, can I? But also really happy for guys on Washington like Ovechkin, of course, Holtby, who I've loved for a long, long time. A lot of guys on that team that definitely deserve that, or finally deserve that ring. And it's going to be great to see them finally get the chance at it, no less, against Vegas. At least have the chance to be there. And whether they win it or not, at least they were close to it. And Washington definitely deserved to win this series. It's going to be interesting to see how they perform going into Vegas, because they're definitely the better team against Tampa Bay. So we'll see how they play against Vegas. What will happen there is going to be an interesting final. But for Washington, they definitely had a great series and definitely deserve to advance to that Stanley Cup Final. But yes, as a Tampa fan, it does suck, but we still have a great shot next year. And for Washington, they may never have the chance. I mean, they look good in this series, but you never know. So it's great to see they finally got over the hump, getting to the Eastern Conference Final, and they got over that hump too. And while I may be sad at the same time that Tampa is knocked out, I'm pretty damn happy for Ovechkin. He's finally getting the chance at it. So that's going up for the guys. Make sure to like and subscribe. Tell me down below what you thought of this series. What do you think of Tampa? What do you think of Washington? What do you think of this series as a whole? And I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.